In this video, I will share my proposal of how I would want to do an experiment with orcas for testing how well we might be able to teach them language. So the long-term goal would be talking to orcas if it's possible, not in English, but in a very optimized language where the orcas can make the sounds very easily. And this is a very, very early prototype version of um, trying to see whether some few grammatical features can be learned, but like very minimalist, uh, seeing how long they take to learn stuff, and yeah, getting some preliminary results, but nothing super like very far from all grammatical features. So yeah, how would the setup look like? The setup would be like we would need to be at a facility which has orcas and allows us to do the experiment there, and then we would put a hydrophone into the water, a underwater speaker into the water where we can play sounds, and have a tin whistle. And a tin whistle is this instrument. It's a quite high-pitched instrument, and why this is useful will become clearer later. And yeah, so ignore the rest. I will say it later there with examples. And okay, so I said we want to use a very optimized language that's easy for us to perceive and vocalize. And what we use there is just frequencies as letters. And this initial experiment just uses 5 different letters. And those are the frequencies of like um, G5, A5, B5, D6, and E6. So those are musical notes. And here is how they sound like. So this was G5 until E6. And yeah, so as an example, like the way we have those base letters, and then just like in English, where we have letters and can make words out of letters, we can have those tones and we can make words out of tones. And in this example experiment, we have the word this be the tone D, the word is be the tone B, and for example, ball is DA. And the way it would sound like then would be the thing here. So like now, so this would be like this is ball. Um, yeah, just so you get a sense. And yeah, so the first phase of the experiment would be that they learn to make those sounds reasonably well, or possibly first to distinguish them well. Um, and in Marineland, there's already like orcas, they have this vocal imitation command. I haven't looked precisely into how it works, but the like the idea would be that we uh, like assuming now that we have this vocal imitation command, which we might not have, but like it's apparently known how to teach it. So let's assume it for now. Uh, and then we can play sounds with the underwater speaker and do the vocal imitation command, and they need to match the sounds. And we can like try to give rewards if they match it precisely, or if they match it not precisely enough, we can use the tin whistle to show what they were supposed to make, what sounds they were supposed to make. So we want to always use the tin whistle for correcting orcas about what they should have done. And this is very useful, I think, because once we've established this pattern, once they get the pattern of like the tin whistle always shows you what you were supposed to say, uh, this acts as a much more rich feedback signal for learning, because now we can't just say like, oh yeah, this was right and this was wrong. But if it was wrong, we can also say, yeah, you were supposed to say this, and this can like speed up learning by a lot. So in the beginning, they of course don't yet know it, but yeah. So this is just some training so that they don't have the double struggle of like trying to remember what words to say and trying to match the frequencies precisely. And yeah. So now we get into the actual language learning, and we start with teaching very simple objects. And this has been done before in the 80s with Gudrun, the orca in the Netherlands, I think. And yeah, what we had there is basically like yeah. So the reason why we put things into water directly rather than using a screen where we can show stuff, which I initially thought, well, it might be a good idea, but it seems like orcas might not be very good at vision stuff, which might sort of make sense. Like humans are very visual, but yeah. So it's probably a good idea to just like bypass the visual bottleneck and put stuff into directly into the pool where it's first like more familiar that you can recognize it through vision rather than some abstract 2D screen or something. And second, like also echolocation, so if they want to use it or other stuff. And yeah, so what we would do is that we put a ball into the water, then the underwater speaker makes the word for ball, and then the underwater speaker makes the word for what. And they, of course, have no idea what yet means or something, but like if they say nothing, then we can say like, okay, with the tin whistle, the word for ball. And we might need to do that a few times in the beginning until they recognize that like they are supposed to say something when we say what, and later they will perhaps generalize that like the what word means sort of like the fill in the blank word. Um, so yeah, but we do that for ball. We can do the same for hoop and the same for coin. By coin, I don't mean uh, like tiny coin or something, but I mean like something that has two sides. I just don't have a good word for it. Um, and like where it's very easily perceptible which side it's on. So like this would be an example which we could put into the water and then like, okay, now the coin is down and now the coin is up and down, of course, also means just like in this context, like what the coin means instead of like the generalized up and down or something. Um, yeah, so this, for example, could be a coin or something like this. Um, and yeah, then we can of course test when we put into water into, an object into the water and then ask the what word, which is the D tone, and then they say something, and then we can see whether they correctly say the right object. And if not, we always use the tin whistle to show them what the correct answer would have been. So the next thing would be teaching, is the coin up or is the coin down? So like we put the coin into water in the down position and show coin is down, like say that with the underwater speaker, the same for the upper position. And then we do it again with the question, coin is what? And yeah, like they might not know directly how to generalize the what word in an example where there are other words in the sentence, but then we can show again like, okay, in this case you were supposed to answer down, and in this case you were supposed to answer up, and yeah, then we can do more examples like this until they get it. And the next thing would be teaching the word this, and this in this experiment means like pointing to something and pointing very clearly to something close actually rather than like far away. So it's like this visual indication and not like a generalized this of like this thing of what I was talking earlier about. So what we will do here is we take a ball and show like and point very clearly to it and say like this is ball. We don't have articles. Um, like the or doesn't exist in this language, actually doesn't exist in many languages. Um, like then we use other objects like a hoop, show this is a hoop, show this is a coin, like without the L word. And yeah, by the way, it could also be used to name objects or people or orcas, which might be people, I don't know. And yeah, then like just as a side note, like we could maybe get it to the point that they can correctly respond to such examples by like we of course tested again with like this is what, and then like oh they have to say ball or whatever if we point to a ball. But yeah, like of course, just because they correctly can respond to this and the previous example doesn't mean that like that they know the word is and can now use it in like new examples. Like we would need a lot more examples with the word is until they might generalize it correctly. And in fact, like the way the word is used here is a bit different than the way it's used in the previous example. But yeah, just like, yeah, be realistic of what the workers have learned and what not. So now comes the first really interesting thing and the hard thing. And this is basically the word not, or the way we teach it is that we have like, that we basically teach true slash false, those words. And yeah, like the motivation for teaching not that early is partially that like it's very useful for pinning down further concepts because we don't only want to show like, oh, this is a part of like what is big and this is something what is big, but we also want to show like, oh, this is something that's not big. And big and small is a relatively easy example that you might be also able to teach in a different way by having a contrast where like the obvious difference is the size. But like for more difficult examples, it's very useful to also show like what is not part of the category. And yeah, so how would we teach not, or the way? So first, how does it work in the language here? So we have this word if with two F, which is short notation for if and only if. And this sounds complicated, but it's actually very simple. So really mathematically simple. It's just weirdly uses weirdly many words in English, or like partially we don't really use if and only if in English. We just like use if, even though we mean if and only if sometimes. And yeah, but yeah, so the way the syntax here works is that we have a sentence, and then we have if, and then we have the truth value is like true or false, and like the if is sort of like the is. So like we have coin is up, uh, and then like if the coin is up, we say coin is up if true, which means it is true that the coin is up. So we have a different word for if here instead of is because it's like a sentence level operator instead of like between words and so on. So yeah, and yeah, of course, like the way they perceive if is of course not like the way we translate it to if and only if in our minds, but yeah, it's just like some pattern that we hope to communicate with that. And like now the difficult thing is like how do they manage to get correctly what false means? Uh, so we say some examples with true, and then we say like, okay, now the coin is up, but we say coin is down if false. And then like hopefully they are first confused of like, um, wait, what? The coin is up now. Why did they say coin is down? And then they said something else. That's weird. And then we make a lot more examples of like, uh, now the coin is down, but we say coin is up if false. And then what? The coin is down. Why did they say coin is up? And then like, and they said some if false after that or something. Okay. And then like maybe we do another example of like, this is ball if false. And then like maybe we need a lot more examples, of course, but maybe they pick up at the up on the pattern that every time we say something that didn't fit to what they previously learned, we also say like if false after that. And then what we can do is we can test whether they can complete this pattern correctly of like pointing to something like, okay, now the coin is up. And we say, coin is up if what? And then they say true, hopefully. And when we say coin is down if what, in this case, they say like, oh, they hopefully recognize, wait, that doesn't fit the pattern of what we previously learned. So it's probably if what after, if false after with that. And then they say like false would be the hope. And yeah, like so far I only have very few example sentences with like this is or coin is up or down. We might teach more. Th those are easier to teach than not. So yeah, then we could get more training data if we need more. But yeah, Um, yeah, then like the second to last thing is teaching say, which is basically like the voice imitation command, only that we now have a word for say that we put in front of what should be said. So we have this we basically say and then some tone sequence, and they are supposed to say the tone sequence then. And like yeah, technically the way we would later generalize it into the language, we have some imperative clause marker at the front because we don't have conjugation. So, but this is not that important. Um, so what like it's if they at this point, which they hopefully should have managed to get the concept that like uh, everything which we say with the tin whistle is always like the thing they should have said. Um, then it is hopefully easy to teach when we just always say uh, basically say and then like those tones and then like when they don't say anything then we repeat those tones and yeah this pattern should be easy. And then like the final test, just because we want something hard, it again it's an experiment, it's a test, they don't need to get everything correctly, like all like we get information, there's no real failure, we always learn something. But yeah, like something that would be interesting whether they can already learn it, even with though it's like a quite hard concept to learn, is like hypotheticals or conditionals, where we say like so in English, for example, like if the light is green then walk, and like technically this doesn't say anything about like, oh, if the light is red or something. Like this is just an example for humans, not for orcas. We don't use anything with lights or something. But yeah, like what we usually mean in such a case would be more like walk if and only if the light is green. And we can do something similar in the orca case where we say like um, the coin is up if and only if you say Abe or something like two tones. And and like the behavior we would ideally want, though it's like very hard to guess whether like the orcas generalize that far, and it's just a test. But like the ideal behavior would be if the first sentence is true, like the coin is actually up, then they should say Abe. And if we say like coin is up if you say Abe and the coin is not up, then they should not say Abe. And like, of course, we can also train this explicitly here by, again, showing examples and then like correcting with the tin whistle that they should not have said something or should have said something. There are other versions of this conditional thing with like fill in the blank so the second sentence has the same truth value or something. But yeah, this is hard. Yeah, okay, so this is the end of the things that I would try in this initial phase. Some final thoughts. The advantages are that of the way of this methodology of teaching language would be, I think, that we don't have a visual bottleneck, that we put stuff directly into the pool, and then also that we have the supervisory signal with the tin whistle that we can always say like, this is what you were supposed to say. And then like this is sort of a new methodology. I think there hasn't been that much with such a supervisory signal that has been tested or so. So like generally, like lots of things could go wrong. Maybe something will go wrong. It would be very useful to first have a test phase where we can first like see what we need to change about the methodology. Maybe we need like I don't know, lots of tiny cases, and then like second also estimate how long it will take to get through the experiment. It might be that it's not that easy to estimate even after 3 days if they haven't learned the tin whistle uh, means like this is the supervisory signal of what you should have said thing yet. But if they learned it by then like we can see, okay, how fast is it going now? Maybe, I don't know. And yeah, I have basically no good guess at all of like how long something like this may take and whether they will be able to get it correctly in like a month or something, or whether it might take just a week or something. I don't know. Um, like I realize that the week is very, very optimistic, but like I don't know, maybe possibly they are really smart and this methodology bypasses the previous bottlenecks or something. I don't know. Yeah, there are some minor other things of experiment design where I'm not an expert in, but where I also would try to get it right. And then there's like the possibility to try it with dolphins instead of orcas if orcas are hard to get access to. So yeah, I mean like I haven't really it didn't really seem to me that orcas are better in behavioral experiments than dolphins, though this is surprising to me because their brains are so much more impressive. So I don't really know what's going on there. I wouldn't particularly expect that this experiment works really well with orcas because orcas are smart, very smart, but like maybe I don't know. I'm surprised that orcas haven't been more impressive in the past. Like even more impressive than they are. They are sort of impressive. Um, yeah, this is the end.